My friend, today I would like to give you the ultimate guitar practice outline and blueprint to become a professional guitar player in 2024. If you follow all these steps you will learn about in this very special video, you will completely transform your playing in just a couple of weeks, especially if you're a self-taught guitar player, because with this special video filled to the brim with extreme value for you, you will learn how to get rid of all the bad guitar technique habits you probably developed over the last couple of years. You will learn about the most effective exercises professional guitar players practice every day. And I promise if you watch this video until the end, it will truly transform your guitar playing forever. Before we start, I just want you to know that all of this is just a very small preview for the waits you inside my actual Guitar Academy on patreon.com/burned, because over there you get access to my 12 premium guitar technique courses, 5 music theory courses and 4 home recording courses as well. And there's even a very limited personal coaching tier. This one is for all the overachievers that really want to make a difference with their playing, because they get access to the secret VIP Facebook group where I'm actively coaching all of my guitar students. So if you are sick of always playing the same riffs and licks, feeling stuck with your picking technique and fretting hand technique, and you want to get rid of all the annoying gaps in your music theory knowledge, it's an absolute no-brainer. Just head over to patreon.com/burned right now and see if there are still some available slots for this month. So click the link below, sign up today, I'm waiting for you over there. But for now, let's dive into the awesome practice blueprint I want to show you.
Attention, this is not a drill. The system has discovered 6 critical flaws that will prevent further guitar progress. Stop playing immediately and wait for further instructions.
I bet you know the feeling of being completely stuck on your guitar journey, especially if you're learning and practicing completely by yourself. It took me many years to figure out and to correct my personal technique mistakes and to fill the gaps in my music theory knowledge. Through hundreds of weekly messages from our student community of over 3,000 players on Patreon, I finally figured out some of the main guitar progress killers that concern us all. If you don't correct these mistakes and bad habits, it will be very hard to achieve your goals with the instrument. So let's not waste any more time and work on each one right away and see how they all connect with today's final and most important topic. So right away, this is one of the frustrations I keep hearing about the most. I get tons of string noise when I'm playing with distortion. The open strings are always ringing through. I need a fret rep whenever I'm playing solos, and so on. That sounds familiar, right? So let's talk about it. One of the biggest problems is the accidental pull-off motion whenever you lift your fingers from the fretboard. So that means if you're not playing for that long, or maybe if you never paid attention to it, your fretting hand fingers sometimes generate that kind of unwanted noise when you lift them from the strings, either causing a small unwanted pull-off motion like that, or sometimes you're simply touching the other strings while you're playing with your fingers. This is a big problem that will prevent your progress sound and also technique-wise, but it's easy to fix. First of all, make sure to place your fingers on the fretboard like that for maximum control and efficiency. If they are not curled like this, you will probably keep touching the other strings. That doesn't sound too good. And it will also be hard or even impossible to develop that kind of fluid and effortless sounding legato technique. That won't really be possible when you're playing like that. At least I can't do it. Second tip. A lot of rock and metal guitar players use way too much force with their fretting hand, and we tend to cramp up easily as soon as things get really fast and complex. This was quite a big issue for me as well, especially when I was playing live. As soon as I started reducing pressure with focus on staying more relaxed, I sounded much better and got much less string noise. I promise you will be really surprised by how effortless and fluid you're sounding as soon as you remind yourself not to squeeze the neck like that all the time when you're playing, and as soon as you're avoiding unnecessary finger and also wrist movement like that. And one last tip, don't always just mute with your palm to reduce string noise. Of course, I do love the sound of those muted notes, but you don't want to completely depend on palm muting when it comes to your playing. Obviously, palm muting is not the perfect choice for every single song, riff or lick that you want to play. Instead, I can really recommend adding some hammer-on and pull-off workouts to your practice routine. Aside from the obvious technique benefits, you will also greatly improve your fretting hand technique in terms of string noise. Here's a great daily workout and exercise for your fingers to reduce your string noise and to work on your muting with your fretting hand. As always, you should download the video player alongs, guitar profiles and tabs I made especially for you on patreon.com/Bernd to practice with them. Okay, I hope you're ready for this. This is one of the most important topics ever. It doesn't matter if you see yourself as a rhythm guitar player, or as a lead guitar player, or if you play jazz, or metal. If you don't learn to confidently play in time, you won't make any real progress on your guitar journey. And the solution is not just practice with a metronome, but it's the first step into the right direction. You might not like this sound at first, but it's immensely important to have this timing reference in your practice routine. If you just play exercises randomly and can't check if you're dragging or rushing, you miss out on one of the most important aspects of your daily practice routine. One tip or daily habit that has helped me out a lot with this is constantly recording to a click at home. I record new music for myself or for session jobs pretty much every day, and I'm making these YouTube videos obviously, and that essentially means I have to record to a click every single day. So if you want to avoid an extremely embarrassing first day in the studio, please make sure to record yourself playing or practicing to a click and really analyze your takes and playing. Are you always rushing with certain phrases? Or are your quarter note triplets really in time? Or are you dragging with faster material? Once you get to know your personal shortcomings, it will be much easier to improve on them. So in case you want to work on that from now on, which we all should do more, I have another really cool timing workout for your practice routine. You probably missed this really cool workout. It didn't get a lot of views when I posted it originally. Because, say it with me, still around 70% of you guys and girls are not subscribed to this channel. Yes, I swear I'm not making this number up, and you keep missing tons of really helpful exercises like that. So make sure to join us today to become a real part of our YouTube Shred community. I know, you're probably a bit scared of music theory. A lot of players even get defensive about it, claiming that theory hurts your natural sound and creativity. In my personal experience over the last 15 years of playing, this could not be farther from the truth. You need at least a basic understanding of theory to know which scales to use for your guitar solos, to know which chords are in a key for your songwriting. It's so frustrating to constantly feel stuck in the same boring old scale shapes, and it will kill your progress at one point if you don't develop some fundamental music theory skills. Please trust me on this, it's not that bad. Here's a suggested, easy, quickly summarized roadmap for you. If I could start again with all this, I would start with learning the notes on my fretboard. I recently even posted a whole course on fretboard visualization and memorization for all students on Patreon. Next, you can study the intervals, their names and sound, so you won't be confused anymore when somebody says scary words like minor third or major seventh. Once again, all of this really isn't as bad as it sounds at the beginning. Next, you can learn about chord and scale theory. In this step, you will learn how scales are built and how they are all connected, how chords are constructed and which chords are in a key. With this basic foundation, you can tackle pretty much any advanced music theory topic in the future. Of course, you don't have to become a full-on jazz music theory super nerd. But I can guarantee you, without these fundamentals, you will be stuck at some point, and this absolutely kills your progress both as a guitar player and as a musician in general. Alright, as you can probably tell by now, this is one of my absolute favorite topics. And that's for a reason. I was at a point a couple of years ago where I felt completely stuck with my own technique. I could play some really cool stuff and I was working professionally on big tours and album productions already, but I felt like I was limited and held back by my technique. Up to that point I actually thought I was working on technique quite a lot, since I was constantly practicing alternate picking, sweep picking, tapping and all of that crazy stuff. But I wasn't working and improving on much more important topics like how I'm holding my pick, how my fretting hand fingers are touching the strings while I'm playing, how my fretting hand wrist is moving or not moving when I'm playing, of course how my pinky finger is bending away from the fretboard uncontrolled like that constantly, how my picking angle needs to change for certain string transitions and if I'm working with my wrist or with my full arm. And those are of course just some really quick and basic topics. So once I was questioning all of this and I started experimenting with different approaches, I was totally hooked. First I got my pinky finger under control with exercises like that. Up next I was working on my picking technique, closing my hand and working with my wrist instead of my full arm. That's exactly what we discussed in last week's video, and exercises like that one really helped me with that. So working and practicing like this really unlocked my wrist and that improved my sound so much. And then I worked on my fretting hand technique, my fingers and my wrist angle some more with legato exercises. This of course corrected my finger positioning, it also reduced the string noise, like we discussed in the first chapter of today's video. And I also stopped moving my wrist excessively like that, which was also quite a problem. To make a long story short, I stopped seeing technique as many small topics like alternate picking or sweep picking and started to see the bigger picture. How am I actually holding the guitar? How are my fretting hand fingers working? Where are the weaknesses with my picking technique? And so on. So if you feel right now that your technique is holding you back, just make a list of all the aspects you want to improve and actively work on this in your practice routine. Yes, you might be surprised, sound is extremely important for your guitar progress as well. Great tone is up to debate of course, and we all prefer different amps, cabs or effect combinations. But what is not up for discussion is that too much gain will make it hard for you to identify your shortcomings. This is a bad habit I see with a lot of students. If you practice or record with gain set to 11 at all times, you will have a really bad day as soon as your producer or sound engineer tells you to dial it back. Of course, I experienced this myself and it really hurts, but we have to admit it, hiding behind massive amounts of gain and distortion is one of the big guitar progress killers as well. Here's how I used to practice all the time. That's a cool kind of sound, but when I'm practicing, this is how it sounds like right now. I really want to be able to hear all of these inconsistencies with my playing. This really gets me prepared for studio jobs or for live performances, so that there are hopefully no bad surprises. So I can really recommend trying out a clean sound or just less effects in your next practice routine. It might hurt a bit in the beginning since you thought you sound better and more accomplished already. At least that's how I felt like when I turned down the gain for the very first time. But in the long run, this will really help with cleaning up your playing and technique, and you will make much faster and better progress this way. So how do all previously discussed bad habits connect and potentially kill your guitar progress? In your daily practice routine, of course. We talked about routines a lot on this channel, and if you're subscribed and part of our awesome community here, you know that I love to work with practice plans and I also love recommending this system. But one bad habit or topic I didn't mention yet is challenging yourself accordingly with this. We all hate to sound bad, and it's not a good feeling to fail, especially with something you're so passionate about. But this is absolutely necessary to get better. Simply put, if you sound absolutely amazing when you're practicing every day, you're doing something wrong. If you sound perfect practicing your live set, preparing for a gig, that's a great thing. You will have an awesome show. Great job. But if you sound great and absolutely flawless with your guitar technique and theory workouts every single day, chances are you're not really challenging yourself enough. You absolutely want to struggle and fail every single day. This is exactly what will make you better. So in case you need help with setting up your personal perfect practice routine, you can always hit me up on Patreon. Alright my friend, just a quick reminder, if you still feel a little bit confused about the actual best pick grip, so how to hold your pick and how your pick should move through the strings when you're transitioning between them, remember that there are 12 premium guitar technique courses in my actual Guitar Academy on patreon.com/burn. These will take you from the basics of developing a perfect picking technique all the way to mastering advanced string transitions and professional patterns. So if you want to take your picking speed and control to a professional level, just head over to patreon.com/burn right now. The link is down below. Become my guitar student today, unlock all these amazing courses. I'm waiting for you over there. there, but for now, let's continue with the video.
Shredding. One of your absolute favorite video topics on this channel. But where do you actually start with all of this, and how can you successfully build on your shred foundation every single day? To answer this question in an entertaining way, I prepared my personal 10 levels of shredding from beginner to pro. So we will begin with the simple foundation you need in order to start shredding, and it will gradually turn into absolute insanity over the course of this video. But first, let's start with level 1. Mastering these alternate picking basics is absolutely essential, and you can start out with playing 8th note triplets or 16th notes to a metronome, with a big focus on keeping that wrist motion steady and relaxed. Here you can see how controlled and relaxed my wrist motion is, so please avoid using your full arm to pick and pay close attention to the steadiness of your notes. Downstroke, downstroke, upstroke, and so on. Level 2 is more challenging already. Let's involve the fretting hand some more. Now we're slowly introducing one of the most important topics ever, hand synchronization. So the notes of your fretting hand need to exactly line up with every single picking stroke that you're playing. If you're subscribed to this channel, you know that I can't really recommend playing like this. Here I just played a random amount of notes with my right hand, just pushing as fast as possible, and tried to somehow match it with my left hand. So the hands are not synchronized at all, I'm just pushing as hard as possible, and this is not a shortcut to super fast and clean shredding. When you look at this exercise, you can see that my hands are in sync, and I focus on playing exactly 4 notes before I move to the next group. Working like this to a metronome in the beginning will have huge effects on your progress, and I can't stress enough how important it is to play tight and controlled. Speed comes later along the journey. With alternate picking level number 3, we will push the tempo some more, and we will transition after 2 notes. This gives your brain less time to think, but it's much easier than it looks, and I'm sure you can do this after just a couple of tries. As you can see, my picking hand is still very relaxed at this tempo, and I focus on minimizing my movements in general. This obviously makes it much easier for me to speed up my playing a bit later. So keeping a close eye on your hands and fingers right from these early stages will allow you to make much faster progress. Alright, for the next level, you have to synchronize every single picking stroke with a different note. In my personal experience, this exact skill is the key to unlocking your shredding skills. So getting to level 4 took me quite a while at the beginning, and this is the first really big technique challenge. I really felt like I was fighting against my brain when I started out doing this, because with the previous levels I could focus on my picking hand, while my fretting hand was mostly chilling. Now with this level, everything suddenly needs to be connected and tight like a clockwork, and this definitely takes some time. So please don't rush this step and spend some time at this level in case this is still hard for you. One thing's for sure, you definitely won't regret spending some extra time on hand synchronization at the beginning. It's much more effective than correcting badly synchronized playing later on. Let's move to level 5. Now it's time to get started with those tricky string transitions. This is the next big stepping stone, but you can do this easily with the right exercises. The one I just played for you is a great starting point for that, and we checked out even more effective workouts on patreon.com/Bernd. Over there you can also download the tabs, guitar profiles, backing tracks and video play-alongs for today's exercises and for over 150 lessons. So as you can see, I have to jump between the B and E strings with this lick. I don't want to cause any unwanted noise with my transitions, like getting stuck between the strings, and ideally the listener won't even hear that I'm switching between 2 different strings here. The end result should sound as fluid and effortless as possible, and in my opinion that's the biggest challenge with licks like that. Let's crank up the tempo some more and check out what level 6 is all about. this still isn't too much about being creative yet. Now I'm playing across all 6 strings with an ascending scale pattern, and the most difficult aspect of that one is nailing those string transitions every single time. Once again, I focus on minimizing my movements, both with my picking hand and fretting hand. You want to sound effortless and relaxed as you're ascending in the scale, and that's harder than it looks for sure. When you practice this exercise, please make sure to focus on making each note audible and in time, and don't move your fretting hand wrist too much for consistent results. It's starting to get a bit difficult now. I hope you're ready for level number 7. So this is the biggest jump in difficulty so far, I think. Now I included different note values, odd time signatures, string skipping, and 4 note per string phrases. But please don't be intimidated by this. This is not something completely new you have to learn. We're just expanding the foundation you already built with the previous steps. So while this still does sound like an exercise, it starts to get more interesting now. The added details make this one quite challenging, but string skipping is just string transitioning taken to the next level. So once you feel confident about your string transition, you can also give string skipping a try. This will make your lick sound much more creative right away. Let's see what's behind door number 8 or level number 8. Now things are getting really interesting, I would say. So for this example, I was working with legato, meaning hammer-ons and pull-offs, alternate picking and sweep picking. Fluid and connected transitions are my main focus right here. When I'm switching between all these different techniques and playing styles, I really want to connect them while still embracing how different they sound. So all of these blocks are filled with very fast notes, but to my ears they sound completely different. Alternate picking sounds fast and aggressive. Sweep picking sounds cascading and very unique. And legato playing with those hammer-ons and pull-offs has this kind of fluid and effortless sound to it. So actually combining all of those really cool playing styles will make you sound amazing. We're almost there, time for level number 9. I'm sure you've seen them before. Those flashy and really crazy techniques just look very cool and impressive. But they are also quite hard to master, and to me they're more than just a magic trick or eye candy to impress your friends. You can use crazy techniques like double tapping, multi-finger tapping or other very creative playing style to come up with some really awesome licks. So this looks really crazy, and it's pretty difficult to keep the notes from overlapping and to avoid any unwanted noise as I'm tapping on multiple strings. And those sweep picking finger rolls for the arpeggios might be even more challenging than that. But I hope you can hear that this is not just chromatic nonsense. You can actually use this for your music if you want to. In case you want to learn more about these flashy techniques like double tapping, I uploaded a lot of technique lessons on Patreon already that cover these topics. So make sure to join us over there in the shred guitar community after watching today's most challenging final level. So what could possibly be level 10 for this list? I think this is very subjective and we all have a different nemesis. For some people it's sweep picking, for others it's tapping or any other crazy technique. But my personal level 10 and biggest challenge that I'm working on constantly is mastering extremely fast alternate picking runs with focus on clean execution. So trying to make every single note audible, synchronizing the hands perfectly and avoiding any kind of string noise. As an example of that, here's another 300 BPM attempt with a familiar lick. So I'm trying very hard to stay as relaxed as possible right here and to minimize my movements, just like we discussed in the economy of motion episode last week. I do have to push to play at these tempos and I need to be warmed up first, but the alternate picking exercises, workouts and video play-alongs we checked out on Patreon over the last year have helped me immensely with all of this. I really hope that these exercises will bring you the exact same results. Let's keep working on this together.
Alright my friend, one more very important thing. Since most guitar players focus almost 100% of their practice practice time on technique. They are really lacking when it comes to music theory, so they can't see the notes on the fretboard, they can't see the most important scales and arpeggios, they can't really improvise, so they never really enter the intermediate level, they're always stuck at the beginner level. I want to help you with overcoming these obstacles because it's really not as hard as it sounds. That's why I made 5 premium music theory courses from beginner to intermediate to advanced. These will take you step by step through the most important topics when it comes to music theory and guitar playing. So if you feel like you still have a lot of gaps in your music theory knowledge and you can't see the notes on the neck or the most important scales and arpeggios and you can't really improvise as well, those are the courses to go for. You can find them on patreon.com/burned. Just click the link in the description or in the first comment down below. I'm waiting for you over there. Become my student today. But for now, let's focus on the next topic. Welcome back, Shred Gang. Today is a huge day. I finally want to address your most frequently asked question on Patreon or in any comment section or inbox that I manage personally. What's my morning routine and what do I actually have for breakfast each day? Okay, no, nobody cares about that. What this video is actually all about: guitar practice routines and exercises. With the pretty insane amount of exercises and workouts we looked at on the channel over the last couple of years, and especially in my most recent online guitar courses on Patreon, your big question is, what's the perfect practice routine and which of all those exercises do you actually have to work on each day? That's exactly what we will find out today, so make sure to shred over that like button if you're excited. That greatly pleases the guitar YouTube algorithm, and let's do this. So first, let's quickly address the biggest myth. There sadly is no perfect practice routine out there that suits every single player at every single skill level, from beginner to intermediate to professional. And even aside from those different skill levels, we obviously also all have completely different goals when it comes to our guitar journey. And that's exactly why I love sharing as many different technique and theory concepts on the channel as possible. But I can also understand that this can be quite overwhelming sometimes. So you often requested a summary video and guideline for an awesome daily 30-minute technique practice routine. That's exactly why I want to share the 7 exercises and practice concepts that helped me out the most during the last couple of years. You will just pick the 3 workouts that suit your personal goals best to work on them for 10 minutes each day. And then you obviously also have 4 additional ideas in this video that will help you with changing things up weekly to keep things interesting and rewarding. The first exercise and practice concept serves as the perfect warm-up for your routine. I also constantly use this one to get my hands warmed up as fast as possible for live shows or studio jobs, and it's actually the most effective workout I discovered for this purpose so far. So I was always drawn to the 3-note per string shred patterns and ignored 2-note per string workouts for a very long time, since I always associated them with boring beginner pentatonic scale licks. That was obviously a big mistake, and always focusing on those fast 3-note per string lines actually created blind spots in my picking technique. So playing very controlled, tight and consistent alternate picking at mid tempos, where you actually need it the most, was a big issue for me for quite a while, and this workout solved this problem in just a couple of weeks. You can practice and warm up this way with any chord shapes, arpeggios or cadences, and you will see playing those 2-note per string workouts is actually much harder than it looks. So here's a quick checklist of your practice goals with this one. You definitely want to work on this one with a click for your picking consistency and timing. You also want to avoid overlapping notes and unwanted noise to work on your fretting hand technique. And you want to be able to do this at 100 to 120 beats per minute with 16th notes to effectively warm up and improve your mid-tempo alternate picking motion. Another one of my personal weaknesses when it comes to technique was my flying pinky finger and my finger independence and fretting hand technique in general. I'm sure that you're also familiar with this. It sometimes really feels like your fingers are connected, especially the ring finger and the pinky finger, and you can't control or move them individually. And of course, it's also extremely hard to keep them close to the fretboard like this when you're playing and to avoid that flying pinky finger. So the first exercise that got me really fast results and improvements with that, aside from the very popular spider exercise that we're probably all familiar with, is actually a really simple one. But if you have a guitar on your lap right now, I dare you to try it. Once again, it's much harder than it looks. So the main goal with this workout is keeping your pinky finger and your fretting hand fingers in general as close to the fretboard as possible as soon as you lift them to play on the next strings. And this workout was so effective for me because I isolated this exact situation where the pinky problems occurred for me, and I turned it into a simple but powerful exercise. This is a great formula for discovering and creating exercises for yourself. Whenever you encounter a phrase or lick that's especially hard for you to play, make sure to isolate this problem zone and to analyze what's actually happening. Turning those personal technique problems and frustrations into exercises is an awesome and very personalized way of getting better. By the way, as always, you can get the tabs, guitar profiles, backing tracks, video play-alongs and all the other additional practice files for all of today's exercises on patreon.com/Bernd, and my most recent in-depth guitar courses as well. So make sure to join our awesome guitar community of over 4,000 dedicated players today to make the most amount of progress in the shortest amount of time possible. Yes, this really pays off and you won't regret it. The next one is an absolutely classic workout on this channel and in our community, so I have to include it on this list. It might just be the best picking workout we looked at so far, and I recently added it once again to my own personal practice routine. The goal with this one is playing clean 7-note groups, which is actually really challenging because the picking direction is turning around with each string. As you can see, you're starting the workout with a downstroke on the first string, but the first note on the next string is an upstroke, and this shifting pattern continues throughout the entire workout. I don't want to talk about this one too much since there are several videos on the channel also documenting my own progress and technique improvements with this exercise. In case you actually missed those incredibly important episodes, make sure to subscribe right now or you will keep missing extremely helpful videos and exercises like this one. You might have actually missed the one that would have greatly helped out with your personal biggest technique or theory frustration. So subscribing is the best way of staying on track since I'm uploading every single week. So this one is my personal suggestion in case you want to level up your alternate picking skills as fast as possible. Just a quick checklist for this one so that you don't miss anything about it. You really want to focus on clean string transitions. That is the most challenging aspect right here. In the best case and in the perfect world, the listener actually can't hear that you're switching between the strings and it sounds like one effortless stream of notes. You also really want to focus on your hand synchronization right here, since you're making sure to sync up an odd picking pattern, 7 notes, with the notes that your fretting hand is playing. And this also serves as the perfect picking endurance workout, since you can easily just move the shapes up or down the fretboard without stopping to play, so you can just loop it over and over again. Up next, I'd like to challenge the more advanced players. This is not exactly a musical workout, but it will greatly help with getting your fingers in shape. You're just working with 2 repeating shapes all across the neck, and your picking hand is sweeping, since you're mostly just playing 1 note per string. This one is extremely effective because you're working on economy of motion, finger independence, sweep picking, and pull-offs. So quite a lot of advanced guitar technique topics in one exercise, and in my humble opinion, they should all be on your personal practice list. As I said, this one is quite tricky, but it really pays off to work on this one consistently since there are so many different technique layers and topics in there. Of course, you can also give it a try with alternate picking instead of sweep picking in case you want to work on this technique instead. Remember that this is all about figuring out your personal practice goals and the exercises that will lead you there. So maybe you already picked 1 or 2 of today's workouts for your own personal routine. If you especially feel like your fretting hand technique needs some extra work, please make sure to choose that one as well. You won't regret it. The next one is for all players that want to shred faster. This is obviously a very common practice goal since a lot of awesome songs and guitar solos require this skill. So you definitely have to get your picking technique in shape and also synced up with your fretting hand. The fastest way of achieving this that I came across is working with speed bursts and with tension and relaxation. So the next exercise is all about pushing for very high tempos for a short period of time and then interrupting those short and fast bursts with brief moments of relaxation. Working like this will easily allow you to step outside of your comfort zone to play at tempos that you're not exactly comfortable with yet, because this is all about exploring those higher tempos and getting a feeling for how the motion should actually feel and look like. I know this looks quite hard, but you can definitely do this. I also made very slow play-alongs for you to get started and a full speed trainer package on Patreon. A lot of my students actually make the mistake of going for picking endurance workouts right away to work on their speed, but as soon as they discover those speed burst workouts, everything changes for them. Simply because they realize that you have to start running at some point, and you won't learn how to run if you just walk a bit faster every day. Meaning playing exercises just 5 beats per minute faster in the hopes that you reach 250 beats per minute or something like that in a couple of weeks. It sadly doesn't really work that way. But you will get amazing results as soon as you push yourself outside of that comfort zone right away. And I really hope that working with those speed bursts will be a huge technique revelation for you as well. The next exercise is finally all about sweep picking. I personally can't recommend enough to work on this technique, simply because it will open so many doors creatively as soon as you're able to synchronize the sweeping motion with your pick with some awesome sounding arpeggio shapes. The following exercise is actually about the most challenging aspect of sweep picking. You are focusing on those tricky directional changes when it comes to your sweep picking technique, because it will get very boring when you just play arpeggios up and down every time you're sweeping. So you really need to master more creative patterns and transitions like that. So the trick right here is that I'm angling my pick in a specific way as soon as it's time for those tricky string transitions and directional changes in between those arpeggio shapes, because I really don't want to touch any surrounding strings to avoid unwanted noise, to make it sound as fluid and effortless as possible. And that's a really important skill you have to learn in general to clean up your playing and to sound like a professional player. Just make sure to pay attention to your picking angle with this workout, especially to make sure that the pick can escape in both directions as soon as it's time for those directional changes. And you will really see fast improvements with your sweeping skills after just a couple of days of working on this. And for today's final workout, I really recommend a legato exercise, so hammer-ons and pull-offs. This is also something that I personally neglected for far too long, and I had to pay the price in the form of rebuilding and restructuring my fretting hand technique. This is something I want to save you from, since it's not fun to do that. It feels a bit like starting at the beginning again with your fretting hand technique. So make sure to give the following workout a try in case you feel like you have to work on your hammer-ons and pull-offs some more. This one is great because you're working on all of your fingers and you're working on both hammer-ons and on pull-offs as well. So the most challenging aspect right here is avoiding any overlapping notes. And of course you also want to make all notes equally audible and well articulated. So you don't want your hammer-ons to be louder than your pull-offs, and you don't want the notes that you're hammering on or pulling off with your pinky finger sound weaker than the notes that you're hammering or pulling off with your middle finger or ring finger. So the quick practice checklist for this one looks like that. First of all, once again, no overlapping notes allowed right here. You want to make all notes audible in there and equally articulated, so the same dynamics. And of course you want to keep your fingers as close to the fretboard as possible so that they can hammer on and pull off quickly, so that you can increase your tempo. And probably the most difficult aspect, of course, you also want to play in time. So I highly suggest working to a metronome with this one as well. My friend, one more very important thing, aside from picking technique, music theory and all of those topics, is how you're actually sounding when you're playing guitar. Most guitar players are not satisfied with their tone, and whenever they have a real amp or a plugin in front of them, they don't really know what to do to get a great sound out of it. Sure, you can always use some presets, but then you will always sound like somebody else and you will never find your own awesome sound. That's the exact reason why I made 4 premium home recording courses for my Patreon Guitar Academy on patreon.com/bernd. With these courses I want to show you how to properly dial in a professional sounding guitar tone. So if you finally want to be able to dial in a professional sound with any kind of amp at home, just head over to patreon.com/bernd, check out these amazing courses right away. I'm waiting for you on Patreon, but for now, let's continue with the video. Shredding. What's the big secret, the shortcut, the life hack, the miracle exercise that will increase your guitar speed, control and precision in a matter of seconds? Short answer, I don't think that there is such a thing. But there is one incredibly important technique aspect that will get you there much faster if you start implementing it today. I wish I knew this when I started out working on my shredding skills back in the day, but I'm very happy and excited that I can finally share this with you today. Today's incredibly important topic is called economy of motion. I was honestly really bad at learning about physics when I went to school, but this is something that even makes sense to me. It's extremely hard to speed up a big, uncontrolled, cramped up, full arm motion when it comes to picking technique. Believe me, I tried to do this in the past and I thought I just need to push even harder to get to those super fast tempos. But to make a very long story short, that got me absolutely nowhere. The same goes for your fretting hand. If your fingers are flying across the neck like that and you constantly have to move them back and forth in extreme angles like this in order to reach the next note that you're playing, it will also really stand in the way of playing very fast, controlled and precise. That's a short summary of what economy of motion is all about, reducing the size of your motions and making them more precise, effective and controlled. But how do you effectively work on this in your daily practice routine, aside from just paying close attention to your fretting hand and your picking hand? I have 2 extremely powerful exercises for you today that will improve both your fretting hand technique and your picking hand technique simultaneously. This will instantly help you out with developing a relaxed wrist motion with your picking hand, and your economy of motion with your fretting hand will also greatly improve after just a couple of practice sessions. So this will help you with getting rid of that full arm motion, and it will also really help out with your fretting hand technique in case you're struggling with rising fingers like that or with the flying pinky finger. As always, I made some really awesome practice backing tracks, guitar profiles and PDF tabs, especially for you on patreon.com/bernd. So make sure to download all of these files after watching the following really important instructions. Before you go and practice this, we have some really important details to discuss, and the workout won't help you if you skip this. I will make it short and effective. First of all, this is a really cool practical minor arpeggio featuring the 9th, basically a chord tension. Make sure to try out this arpeggio shape next time you play over a minor chord when you're improvising or when you're working on a guitar solo. It sounds extremely awesome. Secondly, I'm working with alternate picking here, so a strict and constant pattern of downstroke, upstroke, downstroke, upstroke and so on. Yes, this might be easier for you with sweep picking or with economy picking, but that's not the point of this exercise. The really difficult string transitions right here will shape your alternate picking motion, and in my personal experience it's only possible to play this with a wrist motion. A stiff arm motion like that will get your pick stuck between the strings and you won't really be able to escape that dead zone between the strings. So this is a great factor to double check and to make sure that you're working with a wrist motion when you're practicing this exercise. So while we're at it, let's discuss the picking hand in detail first.
As you can see, I'm placing my palm on the bridge. I don't like to work with the so-called floating hand approach, where your picking hand doesn't come into contact with the guitar at all. I personally always need that kind of connection to the instrument when I'm working on alternate picking, sweep picking, or any kind of challenging material. I didn't get any good and reliable results so far when my wrist isn't touching the guitar at all, and it's also much easier for me to switch between open and palm muted notes when I just have to move my hand back and forth like this. So my picking hand is very relaxed, but I do feel some muscles working right here or even right here when things get really fast. As you can see in this footage, I also tend to use my arm just a little bit in order to push for those really extreme alternate picking tempos. But once again, the motion is never just coming from my elbow like that, and I'm never locking up my wrist completely. So at mid tempos like this, I could go for a very long time and focus on keeping the motion small and effective. One last detail, make sure to angle your pick a little bit. It's much harder to play this with the string transitions when you're working with a flat angle or parallel angle like that. Also, those string transitions are really hard when you're using a big surface of your pick to play instead of just working with the tip. So I make sure to angle my pick when I'm playing, and I'm also only working with the tip of my pick. Now let's quickly summarize the fretting hand. As you can hear, I don't want the notes to overlap right here, like when I would play a chord, for example. I want to separate each note effectively. So once again, I don't want these notes to overlap. This obviously means that I have to lift my fingers just a little bit, and this is the most challenging aspect of this workout. I'm currently working on my middle finger because it's sometimes rising when I play certain arpeggio shapes or certain scale patterns like the extended pentatonic licks that I often like to play. So my personal practice goal with this exercise is getting my middle finger closer with extended shapes like that, for example, when I'm not using my middle finger. So when you play this exercise for the first time, all your fingers might actually rise, and it will be very hard to control them at first. But it's no problem at all, this all comes with time, so don't be frustrated when you start out with this. Just play it really slowly with the backing tracks that I uploaded for you on Patreon, and focus on keeping the distance between your fingertips and the guitar neck as small as possible. This will help you out much more than playing it as fast as possible and sloppy when you're starting out. Please also remember that this is not primarily a speed exercise. This gets both your hands fit in order to perform fast and controlled alternate picking licks later on. So let's say you worked on this for a couple of days already and you want to make it a bit more challenging. This could be level 2 of this exercise. You don't just make the exercise longer and more difficult this way, you also work on keeping your technique consistent when you're switching between different arpeggio shapes. So working with multiple different arpeggio shapes or with cadences is the first step of making all of this more practical and a real part of your guitar technique. I provided the tabs, guitar profiles and really helpful practice backing tracks in different tempos for both exercises on Patreon, and they start very slow so that you can practice with them immediately. So as we established together in this video, this awesome exercise trains both your hands. You will develop a controlled, precise and super effective wrist motion with your picking hand, and your fretting hand technique will also become much more effective as well over time. Do you know how you can make even more progress on your guitar journey right away? You might have guessed it by subscribing to this channel today. Hundreds of thousands of you awesome watchers are sadly not a real part of our YouTube community yet, so make sure to change your status from ghost to guitar legend today by joining us.
Alright my friend, you made it all the way until the end of this video. I'm very proud of you. Remember that all this is just a preview for the waits you inside my actual Guitar Academy, because over there you get access to my premium guitar courses or even to personal coaching directly from me. So if you finally want to get rid of your bad habits when it comes to guitar playing, and if you want to get rid of those annoying gaps in your music theory knowledge, it's a no-brainer. Join the world's biggest Guitar Academy on Patreon today with the link down below or in the first comment, patreon.com/bernd. I'm waiting for you over there. Become my guitar student today. See you inside. Have an amazing day and greetings from Vienna. Bye bye.